The fire dies at 3 a.m. The teepee falls silent. Outside the planes sit at 20 below. Your breath turns white in the dark. The last sparks fade, and the cold begins to creep. Now imagine lying there, wrapped in buffalo hide, the earth beneath you hard as stone, and no flame left to trust. Most of us today would panic. We lean on propane heaters, wool blankets, electric coils. But our ancestors knew better. Tested over centuries across tribes from the Lakota in the north to the Algonquin in the east, survival was never about a single fire, because the hearth was not the only heat. The hide was a second fire. The walls of an earth lodge thick with clay held warmth like a furnace. Even the bodies sleeping shoulder to shoulder became a living hearth. So when the fire died at 3 a.m., they did not die with it. They never relied on one flame alone. The nights on the Great Plains were long, and in the far north, even longer. The mercury could drop fast, 20 below 30 below, sometimes more. A tippy fire was tended carefully, but wind could steal it in a breath. A wigwam hearth might burn steady, yet dry wood was never promised. In the timberline, fuel was scarce, and in open prairie it was scarcer still. So they knew. Fire alone was not enough. Centuries of trial taught them to trust something else: architecture and the body itself. Think of a tippy hide stretched tight against the frame. The smoke hole above could be shifted, flaps angled to choke a gust. Inside, the walls themselves worked like insulation buffalo hide, trapping air the way down feathers trap heat today. Or picture an earth lodge, thick with timber packed with clay. The heat of a banked fire lingered in its walls long after flames sank low. Even without fresh logs, that clay shell held warmth like a slow-beating heart. They built with purpose, they slept with intention, and that wisdom tested in the coldest nights was as vital as the fire itself. They understood survival came not from a single spark, but from the shelter that guarded it. A tippy was not just a tent, it was an engine of survival. Hide stretched tight over poles, seams stitched with sinew, smoke hole above that could be widened or narrowed depending on the wind. Every detail had purpose. When you stepped inside, the first thing you noticed was the floor, not bare earth. No. Thick layers of buffalo hide, sometimes doubled or tripled, laid down to block the cold from creeping up through the ground. Above that, furs piled thick: elk, deer, wolf. They knew heat lost to the earth was heat you'd never get back. A wigwam carried the same wisdom: bark panels or woven mats outside, heavy hides and woven mats inside. Insulation stacked in layers just like we stack fiberglass or bubble wrap today. You could walk from one to the other in the dead of winter and feel the same principle at work: trap the air, hold the warmth, and let the smoke escape without letting the cold pour in. Think about the bedding. Not one blanket, not two. Whole stacks of hides layered so that the air between each skin became its own invisible barrier. Your breath turned white in the tippy, but under 3 layers of buffalo hide, it was summer again. They slept cocooned in fur heat, locked in cold, kept out. That wisdom has not gone stale. The same trick works today. Lay spruce boughs under your sleeping bag and you've doubled your insulation. Stack 2 wool blankets with a pocket of air between them and you've built a furnace. You don't need electricity for that. Just patience. Just the knowledge that our ancestors tested 1,000 winters before us. They built homes that were not shelters alone, but living blankets. The tippy, the wigwam, even the earth lodge, they were designed as insulation systems before the word insulation even existed. And here's the truth. They lived by, you don't always need a fire if your shelter itself is a giant blanket. Sleeping straight on frozen ground. Never. They knew better. The earth steals heat faster than the wind. Lie bare on soil at 20 below and your warmth drains like water from a cracked pot. So they built a barrier, a bed, a shield. Spruce boughs first. Laid thick pine-scented bending under weight, but never breaking. On top, bundles of dried grass. Then hides, buffalo, elk, even wolf skins stacked until the cold had no direct path. This was not luxury. It was physics, tested over centuries, proven through 1,000 winters. Some tribes in the northern forests dug shallow pits. A foot down the earth was warmer than the night air above. You could feel it damp, but not deadly cool, but not killing. With hides spread over that hollow, they created a pocket where heat lingered longer. Think of it this way: every degree saved under your back was worth more than logs thrown on the flames, because heat lost downward is gone forever. But heat held beneath you between spruce grass and hide comes back. It reflects. It lingers. Today the same rule stands. Slip a foam pad under your sleeping bag or line it with spruce boughs and you've doubled your survival chances. I remember a camp in Montana back in '94. I laid boughs thick under my Army surplus bag. While the wind howled, the ground stayed warm beneath me. The Lakota and Cree had known that secret centuries before. Would you trust only the fire above you if the ground was stealing from below? They never did, because they understood keeping heat from under you was stronger than piling wood on top of you. They didn't sleep alone. They slept together, and that was their furnace. In a teepee on the plains, a family would stretch a single buffalo hide over all of them. Children tucked between parents, grandparents drawn close to the fire's last glow. Every breath, every heartbeat adding to the warmth beneath the hide. It was not romance. It was survival. They knew that body heat shared, layered, multiplied, was stronger than a dying ember. Think of the longhouses in the Northeast. 50, sometimes 60 people under one roof. Fires burning down the center aisle, yes, but more than that, the press of bodies. The Haudenosaunee designed those spaces to be homes of warmth as much as homes of kinship. Even in the earth lodges of the Mandan, thick with clay walls, families gathered tight. The hides above them trapped the air, but the real hearth was the group itself. Shoulder to shoulder, chest to back. They created a living engine of heat. Your breath turns white in the air, but inside the shared blanket it becomes summer again. That same wisdom is alive today. In an army tent, when the heater breaks, soldiers know to pile in close. In a winter bivouac, mountaineers zip their sleeping bags together. Would you trust your body heat alone if the fire died? They did. And it worked. I remember one bitter night in North Dakota years back. My own fire blew out. I crawled into a surplus sleeping bag with 2 others shoulder to shoulder. We woke up cold, yes, but alive. And that's exactly what the Lakota and Cree had trusted for generations. The truth is simple. When the fire goes out at 3 a.m., the embrace becomes fuel. The hearth is not only wood and flame. The hearth is flesh and breath. The hearth is us. Not every fire had to blaze through the night. The old ones knew this. Sometimes the secret was not to keep it burning bright, but to let it rest. They learned to bury the coals. A shallow mound of ash pulled over glowing embers. From the outside, it looked dead cold gray, lifeless. But underneath, the fire still breathed. Come morning, all it took was a dry tuft of grass, a gentle breath, and the hearth came back to life. Some tribes perfected what we now call the banked fire. They pushed coals deep into the earth, covered them with ash bark or even dung. The fire didn't die. It only slept. Waiting patient until dawn called it awake again. This was no accident. It was practice refined over centuries on the plains, in the forests, across the frozen north. Because carrying fire meant carrying life. A flame kept banked through the night, saved precious effort and fuel come sunrise. Think about it. Gathering dry wood in a snowstorm could take hours. But if your ancestors had left you a heart of glowing coal beneath the ash, you had a head start. A matchless spark. A guarantee that the cold did not win. I remember a winter camp years back. We banked the fire before bedding down, shoveling powdery ash over the embers. At first light, I brushed it aside. There they were, still glowing red as a fox's eye. We fed them slivers of pine, then logs. Within minutes, the fire stood tall again, as if it had never left. The The same trick the Lakota, the Cree, the Algonquin had relied on long before my time. They did not let the fire die. They only asked it to sleep beside them. Today we lean on electric stoves, on propane heaters, on furnaces that hum in the basement. If one of them fails, we panic. But our ancestors, they survived nights colder than most of us will ever know. They did it without wires, without switches, without fuel trucks on the highway. They did it with knowledge, with patience, with community. A tipi was not just canvas and poles. It was insulation. A wigwam was not just bark and mats. It was strategy. An earth lodge was not just clay walls. It was stored heat banked like a treasure. They layered hides, banked fires, laid spruce boughs, thick and pressed close together. Each trick tested over centuries. Each one a step between life and death. Heat, hide, hearth. Those three words carried families through winters so fierce, the buffalo herds themselves migrated south. And here's the part we forget. Survival was never about the lone man by the fire. It was about the circle, the family, the clan. A fire can die. A man can freeze, but a group sharing heat knowledge and labor could outlast the storm. I think back to a winter camp of my own. The power went out. No furnace, no hum. We lit candles, we pulled blankets, we pulled closer. It wasn't comfort, but it was enough. And in that moment, I realized we were only repeating what the Lakota, the Mandan, the Haudenosaunee had always known. So here's the question I leave you with. If your fire died tonight, would you be ready? Would you know how to trap heat from the earth? Would you know how to bank a coal till morning? Would you trust the warmth of another body if that was all you had? Our ancestors did. And because of that, we're here to tell their story. So now I turn it to you. Have you ever faced a cold night? Without a fire, maybe the stove ran out of propane. Maybe the woodpile was wet. Maybe the wind took your flame at 3 in the morning. If you have, you know that silence. You know the bite of frost creeping under your blanket, and you know the relief of any trick, be it a hide, a borrowed coat, or the simple warmth of another body beside you. Drop your story in the comments, because here, this circle around the digital fire, is where those stories belong. Others will read, others will nod. Others will remember their own nights and know they are not alone. That's how we keep this knowledge alive, not in textbooks, not in archives, but in the voices of those who have walked through the cold and come out on the other side. Our ancestors did it in the teepee, in the wigwam, in the earth lodge. We do it in army tents, in canvas tarps, in cabins where the furnace fails. Different shelters, same principle. Heat, hide, hearth. Always shared, always remembered. And if you've ever banked a fire or huddled for warmth in an army tent, write it down below. Others here will understand. Now, if you found tonight's story useful, stay close. Because in the next fire we light together, I'll share tricks for keeping coals alive through the night. Not just theory, real methods, secrets passed down, tested, and too often forgotten. Methods you may never have tried yourself. Until then, keep the heat, hold the hide, guard the hearth. And remember, when the fire dies, the story continues.